Hey everyone, welcome to episode 4 of Chats with T. This is the podcast where we get to speak to different business, technology, and thought leaders about the great work that they're doing in their spaces and the impact that they're actually having in the spaces that they are. So today we have a really amazing guest. He's a gentleman I've been trying to get on the podcast, and I have the opportunity to visit him in his hometown in Cape Town. So yes, I'd love the gentleman to introduce himself, just tell us his name, what he does, and we'll get right into it. So welcome.
Thanks, Roger.
Yeah.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks, Roger. I'm Nick. I'm the senior technical director at YellowCard. Been in the industry now for 15, 16 years. So getting grey. But yeah, enjoying it still. Quite happy to be here. So yeah.
All right, cool. Welcome to the podcast, Nick. You've had an incredible tech journey so far. So from your early days at Visa up until being director of technology, I'd just like to understand what inspired you to be in tech today? And what are some of those early childhood experiences or inspirations that came your way that inspired you to actually pursue a career in tech?
Yeah, I think I'm very privileged to be in a position where my passion is my job. I've spoken to a lot of friends about this. Actually, it's not really a job when it's your passion, but it's nice when it makes you money. So it's kind of a double whammy. But I've been interested in technology from a very, very young age.
Okay.
I think it started with, I remember my grandpa had this old MS-DOS computer that was kind of collecting dust in the corner of his office. And he just said, look, if you want to fix it up and see if you can get it running, you're welcome to. So I just kind of tinkered around and managed to get it running. When I think back to it, because it sounds impressive, this young kid like fixing a computer, but I don't think there was much wrong with it. I think I just needed to clean it up a bit and then start it up. But I'd like to think that I made a few, fixes. But anyway, it had this Grand Prix game on it, and it had two games basically, Duke Nukem and Grand Prix, and I just started playing that on the computer, and then ever since then, I guess I just kind of fell in love with computer games. I think a lot of engineers start out with computer games,
Okay.
but then that evolved into learning to code, and then everything that comes with that.
Okay, cool. So you mentioned Duke Nukem. I actually remember that game. I think it's one of the games, if you grew up in the 90s, it's one of the games you definitely must have played. Do tell me, what was the first job you actually had? What was the first tech job you landed?
I was actually started as a QA engineer for a company in Cape Town called DVT. Basically, the college I went to, they had this kind of agreement with a few companies where they can sort of poach you before you finish. So you end up with a job afterwards, which is quite nice. And I remember chatting to my manager at the time, which was the guy I interviewed with, and he basically said, "Look, it's a foot in the door." At the time, I wasn't experienced enough to come in as an intern engineer, but the agreement was always going to be that I eventually pivot to doing software engineering. But then I ended up building test automation. So I was kind of like an automation tester, which is an element of coding. So it kind of progressed from there. And then, so that was my first job. And my actual engineering job evolved from that, where I was just like one of the senior architects in the company. Saw that I had some talent. And he's like, look, why don't we just buy out your contract? You come work for us as a junior engineer.
Okay.
And that's where I started.
All right, awesome. So between your first job as a QA engineer and now director of technology, could you speak to maybe one or two roles that had a significant impact in your journey towards you being a technology leader today?
Interesting. It's a it's a good question. I think I didn't really go into leadership by choice.
Okay.
I think it was just like a natural progression.
Yeah, sure.
But it was more just I love people. I love working with people.
Yeah.
Which I guess if you take the stereotypical engineer, I mean the classic nerd, right? They don't really stereotypically they don't really like people a lot. And I was not like that in the sense that I like teamwork, collaboration. I took the lead on problem solving when we've got support issues that come up. I would normally drive those kind of initiatives to get a problem out.
Yeah.
So I was kind of always the guy that was like rallying the troops and saying, "Hey, let's go." So I naturally progressed into more of a leadership position. So the two jobs I'd say where I kind of realized this was I worked for a company called Trust Lab.
Okay.
It's actually my first blockchain job. I mean, I was in the blockchain technology space quite early on, as early as 2010. I wish I still had. I dabbled in Bitcoin back in the day, but one of the unfortunate that obviously didn't hold on. But the technology was fascinating to me. I mean,
Okay.
I read the Bitcoin white paper, and ever since then I was looking for opportunities. And then Ethereum came out. I'm like, gosh, this stuff is amazing. Started smart contract development, and then the first opportunity I could get to get into the blockchain space was with Trust Lab, and yeah, there it was just it was like a spark that ignited within me, and I was like just consuming a lot of information online.
Yeah.
Building a lot of things in my spare time, trying to upskill, figure things out.
Yeah.
Because it kind of fundamentally changed. If you look at like how the EVM, like Ethereum's virtual machine, works in terms of like and you compare it with traditional programming, there's like very fundamental differences between the two, and like kind of a mind shift.
Okay.
So that was quite significant, and I think naturally with me having that drive, I just went into more of a leadership role there.
Okay.
And then after that, I would say the second job was at Invictus, where I started as the VP of engineering and then moved into the CTO role. But again, blockchain space, surrounded by highly skilled, highly passionate people.
Yeah.
And that really, pushed me to do better, because I think if you surround yourself with people that are better than you, you become way better yourself.
Sure.
I think you mirror a bit like your surroundings. So that was quite. I think that out of all of the jobs, that was probably the one that had the most significance in my career.
That's fantastic. There's something you mentioned about sort of like a mental shift between traditional software engineering and building on the blockchain, right? With EVM. Yeah. Could you just highlight what, in your opinion, is the mind shift there, or some of the differences?
Yeah. So, I mean, I did smart contract development. So, you have to be way more your intent, like, for example, knowing some of the limitations like block sizes, knowing that access control, the security element in smart contracts is very important. Also thinking about like efficiency, executing a function call on a smart contract. It's stuff that you kind of took for granted, because if you take traditional software development, there was no kind of gas or tax associated to just executing a function. You basically just paid for processing, or wherever the servers are hosted, you pay for the server. Where in the blockchain space, well, more specifically Ethereum, like the EVM It's all just basically compiled down to bytecode, and it runs on this virtual machine. But everything's got kind of like a very strict contractual consequence, so you need to really think about things a bit more. I think that was kind of the biggest thing that I needed. And also, like, it was the early days, so things like Open Zeppelin, like contract standards and stuff, weren't really a thing.
Okay.
So you really had to watch out when doing development.
Okay, fantastic. There's I'd like us to go back to the building teams and leading teams, because you've had great experience building and leading high-performing teams. What would you say are what is like your secret sauce, or what are some of the things you do to ensure that you're building highly effective teams?
I think it's two things. One is actually, like, I think it's Steve Jobs that had this, is like a shared common vision.
Yeah.
But everyone knowing that common vision, I think that's very important. Like, people need to come into come into work, whether it's remote or in the office, with a common vision in mind. Like, if everyone's like going in the same direction and everyone knows exactly what they need to get there, then I think that kind of inspires a lot of confidence. But also there's this element of everyone's in the same boat, and there's a bit of a support system, I guess. And then the other thing, especially with engineers, I think it really helped me that I was always there in the trenches with them. They knew that I can do what I've done. It's a bit, in your career, obviously there's growth and you climb the ladder, so to speak. But I think there's great comfort in knowing that your manager has your back and knows exactly what's going on. Also, they can't really bullshit you, right? So can I say that on that? So but the big thing there is respect. Engineers, I think, respect technical managers way more than they do the stereotypical corporate manager that comes in, that basically just runs through like the normal playbook of being a manager, but doesn't actually know what's going on.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Thanks for the insights there. Speaking about blockchain, especially in our context in Africa, YellowCard is currently revolutionizing the way financial services are being offered on the continent, leveraging blockchain. What excites you the most about the potential of blockchain in financial services on the continent? And also, what are some of the challenges you've faced in the past, or you feel like your teams are facing with adoption in Africa?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing in terms of blockchain for Africa is obviously stables, right? So the value store and the value proposition for your average person is quite high, because you're dealing with a lot of different currencies with volatility, and the dollar being the global currency. It's quite a good facility for you to safeguard safeguard your capital in the long run, right? And that's what I think YellowCard, for me, like, that's the biggest value proposition, is giving people or individuals access to that functionality. If you look at volatile currencies like the Naira, it makes total sense, right? If you're Nigerian and you have Naira, I would probably just store it in USDC or USDT, and then whenever I need to make payments, take it out in local fiat, do the payments. But my capital is stored in an asset that is safe. So that, I think, offers a lot of benefit. There's obviously cross-border money movement that is like blockchain facilitates those kind of open loop nature of money moving way more. But yeah, that's for me what YellowCard does extremely well.
Okay, fantastic. One of the other questions I have about the future of on-chain and where the direction is going. In your view, what would you say is the future of this blockchain or on-chain technology, especially when it comes to governance and transparency?
Well, you need governments to start adopting some of the technologies. I think that's the biggest challenge is that I've worked on a few projects in the self-sovereign identity space.
Yeah.
That use case is so, that's one of the areas that I'm very passionate about. It's such a good use case actually, because if you think about the world and where we are now, like the paper-based system is so archaic, but all governments still rely on it. Like you still have a physical passport. You still have to go into a bank branch. You still have to, get verified documents from the police station. I mean, I'm just thinking in terms of my wife's a British citizen and she wants to apply for residence here. She physically needs to print out papers and go to the police station. Or in the UK, go get like, a lawyer or, someone to sign off on verify the documents. That seems silly because the technology's been around for so long, but that's why I say the governments needs to start adopting these kind of technologies. And it's not necessarily the blockchain element of it. I think it's the cryptography that blockchain's brought these kind of cryptographic technologies a bit more mainstream, because now stuff like zero knowledge proofs, those kind of concepts were introduced within the context of blockchain tech, but it could be used completely outside of a blockchain ecosystem, right? So I think the future is we need mass adoption. We need like big companies to drive these kind of initiatives, but you also need an incentive, right? So I think someone clever needs to figure out a very good, easy incentive for people to start doing it and get governments on board.
Fantastic. I'd like to ask you about a crypto story, maybe one of your failures in the space. And I'm sure you must have a couple of stories. So what would you say is like your biggest crypto failure, or what story have you sort of learned the most from just being in the space?
I wouldn't say necessarily in crypto. I think if you've been in the industry for long enough, especially if because there's the tech element of it, but there's also trading and investing in some cryptos that you really believed in. I always from the outset said to myself, don't go in, because there's a gambling mindset, especially when it comes to the back in the days when ICOs was a big thing, right? You saw massive amounts of money being thrown at basically just a white paper. There's no technology supporting. Let's just do an ICO. It was like a vehicle to raise an enormous amount of money very quickly. Those burnt the industry, I think. Well, in my opinion, it did, because there was a lot of fluff. But then the industry started self-regulating, and over time, all of these, companies that just did bogus ICOs to raise a lot of money just kind of, fell off, and the good ones stuck. I personally was a big Terra believer. I mean, with Doquan and, USD, I think, had the second highest TVL at a stage. I think it was just after USDT at some stage. I might be wrong, but it was definitely top 5, I think. And I just love building on Terra. The Terra Academy was amazing. The SDKs were very good, well documented. The technology backing it was there. I did my homework, but yeah, obviously everyone. Well, if you don't know what happened to Terra, go and Google it. But I've never lost so much money so quickly.
Oh wow!
But it's fine. I just see it as school fees. I learned a lot through that experience, and it happens, right? It's I saw a funny job posting on LinkedIn the other day. So don't apply for this job if you haven't at least been rugged for $50,000 on some crypto scheme.
Whoa.
Which is funny because a lot of people commented and they can relate, right? So it gives the industry a bad name, but it's because of bad actors. There's a lot of reasoning behind it, but like I said, I'm for the tech, and that's where I put my money. Unfortunately, this one didn't work out, but yeah.
Yeah, I know there are some that have actually worked out, and also I know recently with the Trump being elected, there was his meme coin, and we all know how it pumped like insanely. Did you buy some?
Yes.
Ah, okay, awesome.
Not a lot. I mean,
Okay.
I fundamentally disagree with meme coins, but I think it's funny. I mean, it's a meme, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I did get in. But yeah, no, it causes me too much anxiety. It's back because in the days where I actually did a bit of crypto trading, I think it steals too much of your time waking up and looking at the price all the time. So now I just basically hold the cryptos that I believe in. I just hold and don't look at it maybe once every 3 months because for me it's a long-term investment. Okay. I don't really like the Trump coin thing was a 3-day thing and then I was out. So that's
I get. And what advice would you have for no coiners or people who don't currently own any crypto, might be skeptical? Because I know two of the issues I've noticed is getting adoption, like widespread adoption of crypto can sometimes be a challenge because some people don't understand the technology or the value. Some people haven't sat down to read like the white papers. So what advice would you have for no coiners regarding the crypto space and what exactly is happening currently?
It depends on what their intent is, right? Are you asking people wanting to get into it from an investment perspective?
Yes. Yeah, from an investment perspective, yes, definitely. Not like for speculation or gambling, just from a financial perspective. Maybe someone is looking to diversify their investment portfolio.
Okay.
Yeah.
So investment advice.
Yeah. Oh, okay, but not investment advice.
Do you want me to say buy Bitcoin? No. Yeah, I mean, knowledge is power, right? I think historically it's been very difficult for people to, wrap their heads around crypto because by nature it sounds complicated.
Yeah.
If you break it down, it's not that complicated. But this is also me saying it from the perspective of an engineer who's worked on the technology.
Yeah.
I mean, I try to explain it to my parents at a stage, and it's actually quite difficult. And I think the biggest part of it is the concept of, I think one of the biggest barrier to entry is wallet management. The fact that, that's saying not your keys, not your crypto. Some people are paranoid and they want to have, they want to custody their own crypto assets.
Yeah.
And other people, they trust institutions to do that. For example, like Coinbase, But so that problem is solved, but I guess it's just, I think when you want to diversify, literally just think of a crypto that you are looking, like let's take Bitcoin, for example. You can obviously, that's the biggest one, and you can look at historic performance, but it's still speculative, right? It's still high risk, and that's something that you need to know. It's not like you are investing in property or you're investing in I mean, stocks is also relatively high risk, but you need to, from the get-go, have this mindset of if I lose all of this money, it should be fine, right? It's high risk. It's still high risk. I think having that mindset and then looking at it versus I'm putting my savings in here, I don't think that's necessarily a good idea.
Okay.
But to each their own. I mean, personally, there's different risk people have different risk profiles for the same thing.
Yeah.
So go in it with caution.
Cool.
I guess.
And
And don't be intimidated. Read up on it.
Yeah.
You don't have to understand how the Bitcoin blockchain works.
Okay.
But I think it's important to understand a little bit about, like, for example, how the token economics works.
Yeah.
Just as a high level. That's just me. But I mean, for some people, they just want to buy Bitcoin, and then, that's fine too. Just buy Bitcoin and hold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Maybe the disclaimer we'll put is that this is not financial advice.
Of course. I mean, that goes without saying.
Okay, cool. Thanks. There's one other thing. As I was preparing for a podcast, I was doing some research and I realized you were part of a hackathon, I think ETH Berlin. And you guys, your team was part of the only African team competing globally. And I think you guys won, actually, right?
1 of 5 winners, yeah. So
1 of 5.
Yeah, they select 5 winners. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So I'd just like you to share your experience with that hackathon and how did that shape your view of innovation? And what was the experience like? How long ago was it?
Jeez, I think it was 2018 or 2017.
Yeah.
So it's a while ago.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool. It was it was in Berlin, and basically it's a 24-hour hack where might be longer. It's quite a while ago, so it's either 48 hours. I think it was 24 hours, but we just had to build something on Ethereum.
Yeah.
And our project, the company that I worked for at the time was TrustLab, but we actually built an a chain called a blockchain called XO, the XO blockchain, which is a blockchain for impact.
Yeah.
And we kind of followed that impact theme, and we wanted to see how we can utilize NFTs for verifiable credentials.
Okay.
So we essentially built an NFT issuing platform. I think the front end was React, and we just used truffle contracts in the background with a factory contract. So you would fill in a bit of details, and then it would basically just spit out an NFT, and it will return the address of the deployed NFT with the details as metadata. So the idea of that was basically just, it would be, it was very simple. We had a very limited amount of time. But for example, if you did a beach cleanup on the day, and the organization would issue then a badge to you, an NFT badge, to say, well done, this is a verifiable badge, and you can, so we built that, and it was very simple. And at the time, NFTs were quite popular. I think that was, CryptoKitties and all those. I think CryptoKitties was the big one that exploded at the time. So it was quite hot at the time. So I think that's also why we decided to do an NFT project.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. I'd like us to speak about your hobbies and some of the things you're passionate about outside work. And one of the things I know, and I think I looked you up, and you're a self-proclaimed geek who loves DIY drones and home automation. So could you just speak to some of these passions of yours? Do you do it on the weekends? And does this impact how your professional work is, or is it something like completely separate?
Well, I used to do all of that until we had a kid.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's back in the day when I had free time. But I think so. I started off with kind of drone development. Joined a local group here in Cape Town, actually, called Freedom FPV, and it was basically a community of a few people that just had a passion for building drones. It was before the days of, DJI did exist as a company back then, but it was before the days where you can quickly hop into an iStore and buy, an amazing drone for next to nothing.
Yeah.
So we kind of built a lot of it from scratch. Programmed like the flight controllers, and did the soldering for the different joints and all that. It was quite fun because I think as an engineer, seeing it's kind of like I guess the same kind of feeling you get when you design, like you code out a very nice UI. There's that gratification of seeing something. I'm more of a back-end person, so I don't really, you can write a unit test and that's great, but it doesn't give you that satisfaction.
True.
So physically actually seeing something that you've built flying, it was so cool to me. It was like, oh, I built that and it can fly.
Yeah.
I think that's what got me hooked. And then I just got a 3D printer, and then I started prototyping, and I went on YellowCard, did circuitry, and just online tutorials, and started designing my own drone frames. And I went through a whole R&D process.
Yeah.
None of it was ever really good. It was just kind of fun.
Okay.
And then I think when you start going into a bit of the microcontroller programming, and you get your Arduino, and you start tinkering around, you naturally get into the IoT space.
Yeah.
And that's when I discovered Home Assistant, and the rest is the rest.
All right. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. So you said right now you have a kid, so you don't have time for these projects right now.
Yes.
Okay. Do you think you'd pick them up and maybe teach your kids someday when they're old enough?
Oh yeah. No, I flew a little small drone I built. It's probably this size.
Yeah.
My daughter is 10 months old now, and I kind of flew it around her. She didn't like it at all. Not the reaction I was expecting. But I definitely would. This is such a cool thing to share with a kid.
Yeah.
I mean, just going out and doing some flights with her, showing her the cockpit view. It's literally sitting almost like sitting in an airplane.
Okay.
So yeah, definitely. I'm hoping that she'd be keen. It doesn't seem like that now, but I guess it's too early to tell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks for sharing. We're coming to the tail end of our conversation, and I know I need to let you go so you can go spend some time with your family. Yeah. But the last thing I'd like us to talk about briefly is AI. And AI is all the rave right now. And I know there are certain statements that were made in the tech space recently, must have been by Mark Zuckerberg. And what he was alluding to is he believes that AI could replace mid-level engineers, or that's what he's planning to do at Meta. With that particular statement, what are your thoughts around that statement? Do you think it's true? And for engineers, maybe mid-level engineers or more junior engineers, what can they do to ensure that they actually have the right skills and they're competitive in the job market?
I think it's a complicated concept.
Okay.
I don't agree necessarily fully with Mark Zuckerberg and mid-level engineers. I think there's still an element of human reasoning that AI is still not even close to. I mean, you're talking about there's this whole thing about defining, because I mean, an LLM is built around a neural network aimed to mimic the way that we think, right? So, and that's why it's so human-like in its responses. Yeah. But there's still an element of decision making and reasoning that I think is quite far off. That's just my opinion. I mean, I am blown away by the tech that's coming, the rapid growth of the AI space. Okay. So I might be wrong. I don't really know how I feel about it. And one side of me is very excited about the day that we can replace engineers, but I don't think we'll ever replace engineers. I think engineers will probably just evolve into something different. Even now, if you think about your modern engineer, like who doesn't use ChatGPT now?
Yeah.
And ChatGPT has made us, some people argue, lazy,
Okay.
which makes sense, but it's also made us better.
Okay.
So I think you need to adapt to the times. So to your question, like what can younger engineers do, juniors, educate yourself on AI technology. I think it's a very interesting field.
Okay.
And I think you'll soon find that the job market, the push for AI enablement in startups and big companies, there's already a massive push for that.
Okay.
And if you position yourself well, there's going to be a big scarcity in the market for. I don't want to call them AI engineers because basically engineers with knowledge of how to build things like autonomous agents, engineers that know how to do prompt engineering.
Yeah.
So those kind of topics, I think, is really valuable for young engineers, even seniors. I mean, look, the reality of it is, if Mark Zuckerberg is right and it's able to replace mid-level engineers, used to say in a few years' time it's not going to replace senior engineers, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's an inevitable thing that is. Not saying that it's going to replace us, but I think it's something that is fundamentally changing our industry and our space.
Cool.
So we need to be educated on the matter.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Awesome. Thanks. Final question I have, especially around AI, is I know at YellowCard you're driving AI adoption and you're basically in charge of the AI strategy at the company. What are some of the cool projects you're working on, and can you share any with us?
Yeah. So we made the decision early on to do everything in-house. So there's a lot of SaaS products that you can pipe some of your data to and have some sort of AI enablement for your company. But we purposely wanted to build it in-house. So we started simple. We basically built a very simple RAG application. So for the guys that don't know what that is, they can look it up, but it stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation.
Yeah.
And it's essentially a chatbot that's got a knowledge-based lookup to enrich the input. So you can imagine, so we built a customer support agent that's now currently handling close to 10% of all of our queries. And with the idea of increasing that, it's not live on all of our platforms yet. And then the strategy going forward is we are looking at improving on our base generative AI offering by building out autonomous agents.
Yeah.
And what that really is essentially building out tooling to further I did a presentation on this today. You can see my brain is not working. But you can Google it. It's basically just further enhancing the way that you essentially build out the input for the model. And there's a lot of different methods to getting more accurate output from large language models. That's kind of like the end goal, is going from a simple chatbot application to now integrating AI into the various sectors of our business: engineering, finance, legal, and it's all internal. So we purposely did that because we want to keep our IP in-house.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Nick. Last question I have, it's a question I love asking guests on this podcast, is around any wisdom nuggets that you have for our listeners, or our viewers. It can be something that you live by, an ethos, a belief, or something you've been learning recently that you'd like to share with us. So do you have any wisdom nuggets for us?
Wisdom nuggets. Well, I am very grey, so I'm supposed to have a lot of wisdom, apparently. Without sounding too philosophical, I think I've been listening to a lot of podcasts around happiness, like what is that, and how do you get to know? I think a big thing that I struggle with personally is not. How do I put this? Like actually getting out and experiencing things.
Okay.
I think especially with the nature of work and life, you tend to get bogged down at home, and you're very much like a homebird.
Yeah.
And lately I've been on a bit of a path to just actually say, yes to more things and go out.
Nice.
It sounds quite cliche, but it actually works. So yeah, I think the wisdom nugget is, get outside and what's the saying? Touch some grass.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's quite a lame one. Sorry.
No. It's actually pretty good. Like, get outside more. Yes, say yes more. And basically what you've shared makes a lot of sense, especially for those of us who work maybe in tech or in sectors where you're parked behind a desk or behind a laptop for so long that you actually might not have time, or it's difficult for you to create time to say yes. So yeah, thanks for sharing, man. And if guys would like to reach you online, how can they find you?
Geez, I'm not big on the socials.
Okay.
But yeah, I guess maybe LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn.
Okay.
But I'm not very active on the socials.
Okay.
It's kind of just a choice. So.
No problem.
But yeah, LinkedIn and what else? Literally LinkedIn.
That's it.
Yeah. I'm on Facebook, but I'm on I just have it for birthdays.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much, Nick. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for sharing your story with us. And as you've heard, if you'd like to reach Nick, he's not big on socials, but you can reach him on LinkedIn. Cool. Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing your journey with us. And now that you're a friend of the podcast, we'll keep tracking your journey. And from time to time, we'll have you pop in.
Yeah. Next time I'll come to Kenya.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You can come have, what would you like to have? Like nyama choma?
Choma.
Choma. Yeah. You can see you've been learning your Swahili.
Oh, yeah, no.
Cool. Cool.
Cool, man.
All right.
But yeah, thanks.
Thank you.